Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation on mending the whole heart, healing mind, emotions, and heart together. Heal the body. Let's welcome Dr. Sarescu.
Thank you, Ms. Kiba. Just to remind you that this is part 2 of our series with this topic, how to heal your mind and body. Last time we talked about how to heal your mind from stress. And we're going to talk about how to heal the body. But before, I just want to remind you as a summary slide from last time, and those who have not seen that, it's all posted on the YouTube channel, so Rescue the Rescue, and you can watch it. But I realized that we have to have an approach where we treat the whole human and not just a heart issue when you come to see a cardiologist, or a kidney issue, or a brain issue. They're all actually part of a whole. Anything happens in one organ, it immediately has consequences on the other. And I try to show you how they're connected, and I hope I can convince you to show you the connection is absolutely necessary. Nothing that you try to work on fixing our, for example, lifestyle changes, dietary habits, will work unless we still work on our mind. So when we're not treating disease, we're turning off the alarm in order to be able to really empower ourselves to change our habits. We have to be able to get out of the stress zone and be on the safe zone. And when you treat the stress response, you don't just add years to life, you actually give life back to those years. In other words, the quality of life, how you live that life, is important, not just the quantity. So we talk about how to first get out of the stress last time, how to go in the safe zone, then how to heal the mind. We're going to talk about third step, which is heal the body. But our basic coping mechanisms are related to sleep, eating healthy, and avoiding toxins like alcohol. That's part of it. So we're going to talk about alcohol is simple. I just want to make sure I destroy a myth. There is no version of alcohol that's healthy. There's no amount. Doesn't mean if you drink a glass of wine, you're going to drop dead. All it means, it's stress for your body to deal with that. Okay, so we moved through initially that too much alcohol is not good, and one drink a day for women is fine, and 2 for men is fine. And the reality is none of it is healthy at any amounts. Okay, yes. And by all means, I'm not saying you can never drink any glass of wine. All I'm saying is just know what you're doing. Don't assume, but we know that in moderation it's okay. No, we know that even moderation is not okay. That's it. All right, and you can choose whatever you like. Doesn't mean I don't drink. I drink a glass of wine or I have a beer. All right, so just to get out of the way, and maybe the single most important thing that alcohol does, it negative, particularly if you were to have a glass of wine, try to separate it from your sleep. In other words, don't drink and sleep within 2 hours of drinking alcohol, because I promise you that sleep that night is not going to be a healthy sleep for you, particularly if you have problems with insomnia. What happens helps you to go to sleep sooner, maybe, because it's a sedative. But then it disturbs the cycles of the sleep, and you wake up at 1 or 2 a.m. and then you cannot go back to sleep. Or even if you do and you don't wake up, it's actually you feel like you didn't have a resting sleep. So that comes then to the next step, which is for anybody who has, so the single most important coping mechanism we have, we're going to talk about sleep, exercise, and healthy eating. Okay, you will see I will not call it healthy diet, because the truth is it's not a diet, it's eating healthy. I'm gonna call it that the ultra processed food, it's the diet. Something that we have learned in the last 50 years because we handed over our food intake to the industry. Okay. Having said that, let's talk about sleep. Why is sleep important? First of all, it's a myth that if you get a little older, you should sleep only 4 or 5 hours a day. That is not true. We still need the same however you're used to. Some need, like I need only 6 hours sleep. I wake up after that. Some need, but most of us need between 6 and 8 hours mandatory sleep after age 25. And whatever, some a little on the lower side, some closer to 8 hours. So if you sleep actually less than what you used to sleep as a young adult, there is a problem with your sleep pattern and it can be improved. All right. Second, why do we need sleep? And what triggers the sleep? What triggers the sleep is basically the brain runs out of these energy molecules called ATP. Basically, reason why we burn glucose and fats is to produce our energy dollar that's called ATP in the brain that eventually being used up during the day. By the way, brain per gram of tissue is the biggest consumer of our energy. 20% of everything we eat, it's used up by our brain to make energy, which is equivalent. The brain only has 1 to 2% of the body weight. So considering how little weight it has, is by far the biggest use of energy. So when you say that you are tired, 100% your brain is missing energy when that happens. And it's missing energy because the ATP is degraded to adenosine. Adenosine is a byproduct from that the more it accumulates, when it's above a threshold, will trigger sleep. And your brain says, I need to turn off. Well, what do we do to postpone that moment going off or have more energy? We drink coffee, which has caffeine, or green tea that has caffeine too. And the way caffeine works, it stimulates this adenosine receptor. So it fools the brain, it postpones the brain from thinking that it needs to sleep, but it only postpones it. And then adenosine accumulates more, and then you're tired more. In other words, it's whatever energy you have, you're going to use it more in the morning or whenever you had your coffee. And I highly don't recommend to have it after 12 noon. But then you're going to be more exhausted to the brain. Eventually, the adenosine buildup is going to take over and will trigger sleep. Okay, and that's part of it. But then why do we need the sleep? Well, brain clears its toxin and its poisons at night when we're asleep. It's called a lymphatic system. But also brain needs that break to process in the memory new information has accumulated during the day. It's called synaptic actually pruning and tuning. And that's why you have these vivid dreams. All it does is just relieve. It's like you're watching with a video camera your own activities that happen, whether it's in that day or it happened 3 months before. And the brain sorts out, depending on what it thinks it's important, things that were emotionally important. That's how it knows. Things that were important for our gut, for example, we'll remember those. We'll store those if there was something needs to remember, and then we'll get rid of the others. All right, but that's why we can't really. Basically, it's legal hallucination. We hallucinate when we dream because our conscious side is turned off, so there is no control. But also we are paralyzed. The part that moves the muscle is done. So the whole purpose was not for you to see it. The whole purpose is for the brain to do this activity, get rid of the memories that don't need to be stored, and then fix the ones that are important. And how does it know about the importance? Look what was more frequent, what led to some coping mechanism that you needed. If you learn a new skill that is repetitive and you need to know, if you learn how to bicycle, and you keep doing it, and it says, okay, I need to remember that, and it's going to store that, so long and so forth. That's part of the brain. Learning what it needs to store and what it needs to get rid of. But one part, and that's those dreams are in the what we call a REM phase, when your eyes move very fast and basically you're disconnected. But then you have also the deep sleep phase. That's the single most important part. That's usually anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, and that is the part where the brain actually cleans itself up from toxins. All right, and what kind of toxins? Well, the single most important toxins is in the molecule that's called beta amyloid. You may have known that beta amyloid is implicated in Alzheimer's when it accumulates. All right, so guess what? The best way to prevent Alzheimer's is to sleep. Okay, because the less sleep, the more amyloid you accumulate. That's not the only requirement, but I'm saying whatever tendency you have otherwise towards dementia, this is going to be aggravated because you can't clear out those amyloids. And by the way, we need that beta amyloid produced every day because it's an extremely powerful antioxidant. It's actually part of how the brain clears the garbage out. So we need to produce it, but we want to get rid of it and get in the bloodstream in the middle of the night, not store it there, because after it's been impacted, okay? If not, then you feel tired and foggy in the morning, all right? So that's just a big picture about what sleep is, why sleep is essential for us. And there's a lot more going on, but just have an idea. Healthy habits, and for kids, okay, by the way, anybody who knows aging, what's happening during the aging, we start to lose our growth hormone, so our muscles start to get weak. We start losing testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Well, guess what? All those hormones that you say, I need them, they're produced at night. Growth hormone, it's only produced at night or during exercise. So kids need to sleep because that's when they grow. That's when we release the growth hormone. It's essential. Definitely don't need to be on digital devices before they go to sleep. The only reason I'm mentioning, we have today the two guests who are probably the oldest and the youngest I've ever had in the audience. One is 11 years old and the other one is 91 years old. Okay, so I'm trying to make it relevant for everybody. But yes, so everything that means good, healthy hormone that otherwise you may be deficient is produced during the sleep. Everything that's bad hormone, and we learn cortisol, adrenaline, should not, those are stress hormones, should not be released at night, should be released during the day. But if you're up at night, they're released at night. Those immediately turn off the production of the healthy hormones, but also turn off the cleaning of your brain from poisons. Okay, so that's very important. All right, so how are we going to fix our sleep? Because pretty much if I ask anybody here in the audience has problems sleeping? Okay, you don't need to raise your hand. I get it. All right, me too. All right, so here are some tricks we can do to try to be in sync with how our brain was designed to fall asleep. And we need to know this. First of all, your brain knows to go to sleep at 10 o'clock or at 12 midnight or at 2 a.m., depending what was the first moment of the day when you saw the sunlight. So actually, when you go first time out in the sun and your eyes are exposed to the sun, that's when it's telling your brain 12 hours later that you're going to fall asleep. So if you went at 8, then probably you're going to trigger your proper hormone, the melatonin, at 10. If you went at 10 or at 12, you might have problem falling asleep that night. If you're a night owl, it's because you never do it. So you're basically in jet lag all the time. You're those who cannot fall asleep before 1 o'clock. That means you've been jet lagging all along. So you need to reset the clock. But going to sleep at 10 o'clock won't do it. You need to go at 8 o'clock in the morning, out, the first 30 minutes, eyes in the sun, no sunglasses, no more than 30 minutes. Anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes is good enough. The reason why I like the 30 minutes, because also particularly if there's sun, try to expose, and you have a moment, expose as much of your body you can to the sun too. Why? You get also the vitamin D benefit. That's all we need, 30 minutes a day of as much body exposure. And then you get that out of the way. You hit the vitamin D. You hit the sun, hits the special retinal cells that are specialized here. They go into this suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's our master clock of the body. All our organs don't work at maximum whenever you like them. They actually go depending on the clock, on this clock. And you'll see they go in cycles every 12 hours, okay? And this guy then sends a signal from the sun to first the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, meaning, hey, time to release that adrenaline cortisol because you just woke up and you need that energy. So that's when we have that energy that's built up in the morning. That's when cortisol is supposed to go normally up. Okay, so that's one thing that happens. You actually wake up that way. That's when your brain for real knows that you wake up. Okay, and activates all organs that we woke up. The second signal it sends is actually used to produce. It sends a signal all the way down to the gut, and it tells the gut, "Hey, I'm going to do a lot of activities. I already release stress hormones. I need to auto-regulate. I don't want to be too excited. I don't want to get too emotional. I don't want to be too slow either. So we need a mood modulator, and that's the serotonin. That's what it does. It's the self-control neurotransmitter. Why? That's when you say, well, you got to have discipline. If you don't do it, you're missing serotonin. Okay, that's what it does. We call it a mood neurotransmitter, but it's really not a mood. It's a regulator of everything, but including discipline, including doing things today that will, it might be a little sacrifice, but for a benefit to more of our well-being. That's serotonin. But serotonin is not made in the brain. All of it comes from the gut. From the gut. So your son goes to through the eye, sends a signal to the gut, time to make a lot of serotonin, because we're going to need it so we can have very nice auto tuning for all these activities I have to do during the day. Then the gut starts to work on producing serotonin. And by the way, most of those are actually our bacteria in the gut that makes that serotonin. And then we import it from them. And then through the vagal nerve, that serotonin goes all the way back throughout the day at the brain, helps us. We use it to regulate whatever activities we have. And then from the same serotonin, we make melatonin. Melatonin, then, around 10 o'clock, is going to start rising around 7, 8 p.m. and the peak is around 10 o'clock if you saw the sunlight at 8 a.m. And then that's going to put us to sleep. Okay? So we want a big spike of cortisol in the morning. That's healthy. We want a big spike of melatonin. But remember, melatonin comes first serotonin. And the serotonin produced in the gut by seeing that sunlight at 8 o'clock. So let's say if you're out of luck with your insomnia and sleep pattern, don't just focus on going to sleep at 10 o'clock. Focus also on getting into a habit to get some 15 minutes sun exposure as soon as you wake up or whatever you want to fall asleep, 12 hours less, okay? 8 a.m., 9 a.m., as soon as you're out, get out of the house, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Why? The sunlight, doesn't matter how bright this is, you can have the brightest possible light indoors, is still 10,000 times less than the light from the sun. 10,000 times. You can never have enough from the indoor lightning. Okay? So that's essential. That's how our clock knows to tell us when to fall asleep. And if you keep doing that every day for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, suddenly you find yourself that you just fall asleep without any problems. Now, when the sleep wake comes, then you got to listen. Because if you miss it, then you have a problem. So, and that's important. And what happens if you feel sleepy at 8 or 9 o'clock and you cannot go to sleep because you got to socialize and watch some movie? Well, what happens is then you miss that, and then you're going to have another spike of cortisol, stress hormone, because you had other reasons more important. Either yell at somebody or thinking, planning something to avoid or stressing you for what's going to happen next day at work, or working extra, whatever was the deal, you just spike another cortisol. Then suddenly you find yourself again, you're not sleeping. So don't plan to, you really mean that you got to respect that clock once you trigger it. It's very important. Now you can wake up earlier, but just don't miss the going to sleep. That's important, okay? So you don't want spikes like this up and down. You want to be one nice spike in the morning, then, don't release the other stuff. Okay. Now, our seniors. After age 65, by the way, I'm getting close to there. I'm 57, a few more years, okay? We got a problem. Here's the problem we have. You go to sleep at 8 o'clock, you wake up at 3 a.m., and you can't go back to sleep. Am I right or am I wrong? It's a serious issue. Okay. Or you go to sleep at 10 and you still wake up at 3 a.m. Or you go to sleep at 11, you still wake up at 3 a.m. Why is that happening? Because with time, our circadian shifts, goes earlier and earlier. Point is, what used to be 10 o'clock, that your brain will tell you to go to sleep, the clock is activated, now it's closer to 8 o'clock. Why? because the brain looks at sunrise and sunset. Sunsets at 8 or at night, that's when it wants you to go to sleep, the older we get. Okay? And we're missing actually that wave. That's all it means. Yes, it's okay to go sooner. Then I'm going to teach you some tricks, what to do if you wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. Now, if you did get your whole 8 hours by then, you went to sleep at 8, you woke up at 4, you got 8 hours of sleep, then don't worry about it. That means your day is just about to start. You just got to find something that you can do at 4 a.m. without going crazy. All right? But point is, you need to hit still the same 6 to 8 hours. Just know that you might need to shift your going to sleep sooner. And that's okay. Yeah, you may not be able to socialize as much at 8 o'clock. All right? And then that's what happens. Wake up at 3 a.m. because basically your brain thinks your melatonin was released at 8. You go to sleep at 8. And then your brain says, okay, 8 a.m. Well, it used to be 8 a.m. Now it's 4 a.m. Cortisol starts going up. So it will wake you up. The problem is if there is no sun outside to fully wake up, so your real biological clock knows that you got the full sun there. It's only ambient light from the house. Only cortisol, only certain part of our brain activates, not the whole. All right? Because for that you'll need also adrenaline, you need the serotonin, you need the real sunlight. So then we start panicking because we feel like we pull up the pants, ready to walk, but it's only up to the knee. It's like, I'm alert, but I'm really not that functional for what I would like to do. All right? So then you have two choices. Obvious, if you slept only less than 6 hours, then you got to find a way how to go back to sleep. If you slept more than 6 hours, you slept whatever you usually require, then you just say, well, the day is starting, but I need to get fully activated like there's sunlight outside. Okay? So how do you get that? How do you do that? Well, start using your brain. All right. How do you use your brain to fully activate it? Well, definitely not going on iPhone, iPad, or TV, because that just triggers your attention. It does not trigger our full function of using an information or doing. Your brain wants to not see things or think things. Your brain, the only reason why we ever even have thoughts is to lead to an action. Now, an action could be listening to music. Okay? And you can put some headphones if you need to go back to sleep, some beautiful music. An action could be reading a book. Have a book there that you enjoy. Put it there. If you still need to sleep, you'll be surprised after 2 or 3 pages, you're back asleep. Obviously, don't have a profound philosophical book. If Bible stirs you up and you're ready to pray for another 2 hours after that, don't do it. For me, Bible puts me to sleep, but everybody's different, okay? But pick a book, have it there, that you're going to partially activate action plan from the brain, and then you do that. Or if you need to fully get, I'm ready to go, then go and buy your, whatever you plan to do that day in the household. Clean the kitchen, whatever. Start activities and forget about it. And then if you need the power nap later on, you need the power nap later. But the idea is that the worst you can do is to start panicking about it, trying to interpret, why am I not going back to sleep? Because once you do that, then you trigger stress hormone, and then for sure you cannot go back to sleep, but you also don't get alert to really fully activate and have access to your brain functions. You need to stop worrying or questioning why. Just start doing what you need to do. Just decide, am I going back to sleep? Then I'm going to go full action, and I'm just going to say, this is the day, and I'm waiting for that 8 a.m. to come out, or 7 a.m. whenever the sunlight comes out. As soon as the sunlight is out, go out for 30 minutes. And because immediately you'll see how you calm down. Your brain gets full online with everything it needs to do by itself. If not, you're going to help your brain to go back to sleep by doing some minimal action that doesn't overactivate you. By listening to some music, try it. But no matter what, you do something to distract you from being with your own thoughts and panicking, why is this happening? Okay? You do something. Does this make sense? All right. And yes, it's a practice. You're going to have to learn a skill how to deal with waking up at 3 a.m., but it will work. You just got to keep practicing. I always use the difference between me and my wife. Okay? For me, I wake up at 3 a.m. It happens to me too. Now, for different reason, I got a phone call because I'm on call, like was last night. And then it's much harder for me because up to about 50, I could go to sleep like that. Now it's not that easy. So then I start thinking about something interesting that I was, embodying. So I use parts, and then I just fall asleep doing that, or I put some music. I don't start questioning, why am I waking up? Why is this happening? It's irrelevant. I accept it. It happens. Let me see what I'm gonna do now. All right. Now that's not the same case for my wife. I think any woman who has ever had a baby knows that the last time a woman has ever slept right was before they had their first baby. Okay, so that puts you in hypervigilant tone all the time. Light sleep, anything can disturb your sleep, easy to wake up. And I've been trying to train my wife, look, just take it as it is. Just accept it that you are a light sleeper. Doesn't mean you cannot go back to sleep if you just accept it instead of wondering, why is this happening? It's a big difference. If I told you right now I had plans to have a wonderful party outside with 30 people and supposed to be out at my porch, okay? And suddenly it's raining. Am I gonna get mad with the nature that's raining? No, we can have it. No, I'm gonna accept it's raining. And guess what? We move on. But if I start questioning, why did it happen in rain? What's happening? I will never stop. And of course I'm gonna wake up. So there's a difference between accepting and work with what you have is different than trying to control it and wondering why and what. Okay. Now, sometimes there could be legit reasons why you wake up. Okay. And so anyway, I was just going here. By the way, it's all in your handout there. The reason why when we get older, the circadian shift, as I mentioned, shifts later, earlier to fall asleep. Okay. Because there's less melatonin, less deep sleep. That's part of that. And we're easy to get self-aroused or self-panic if you wake up in the middle of the night instead of accepting it and develop a protocol how to deal with it and just move on. Okay. All right. And you get into the worst you can do is to go into the worries and rumination. By the way, between the four walls, after we start thinking in our mind, the brain has lost the anchor with the reality. The reason why once you start thinking about something, you keep circulating it is because your brain has no anchor in the reality. You try to worry and ruminate, but go outside in the sun and do a walk. You see how it stops automatically. You cannot even concentrate if you keep wanting to worry about it. If we're outdoors, immediately stops your worry and rumination. And if there's sun, okay, because we're designed that way, we're evolved that way, so to speak. I don't know if there is a design here or not, okay, but so that's another trick you can do if there's sun outside. So you wake, because once you start thinking and interpreting and provide your own explanation, that's when the cortisol goes up, and then you're done sleeping, and then you create a pattern. Okay, now, so what can we do other than what I just told you? Shift your clock and listen. When you know your sleep-wake hubs, listen to it and go to sleep. Leave everything else on the side. Respect your sleep, clock, which you know it. Everybody got their own clock, okay? And if it's a late clock, move it sooner. But you move it sooner by move your sun exposure in the morning sooner first, and then you respect the 10 o'clock, whatever that is. Another trick you can do that makes a big difference, cool down the bedroom. Brain goes to sleep only if it's cool, ideally less than 70 degrees. So lower your temperature, and it's okay to put a thicker coat if you need to. All right? That helps if you're... Now, some people don't tolerate the cold, that's fine, but I'm just saying it helps a lot. Make everything dark in the room that you actually, no sun, no lights. Obviously, if you are worried you're gonna fall, you might have some, but find some sleep-friendly light. Okay. Now, some people take melatonin. Do not take melatonin that's prescribed by doctors. Do not take the over-the-counter one. The problem is the overdose. Melatonin is prescribed by doctors or over-the-counter. It's 5 or 10 milligrams. Way too high. If you take too high, that's the opposite. It stops you from sleeping. The real melatonin that our brain produces, that listens to, is 0.5 to 1 milligram. Very low dose. And you can find over-the-counter, but you have to know the low dose, 1 to 3 milligrams, no more than that, if you want to. If you take more, it's the opposite. It arouses you too much. It may feel like Might be a placebo effect, may work a night or two, and then suddenly stops working, and the opposite. You keep going up on it, it makes it worse. So that's important. Do something that will help you have deep sleep, prolong your deep sleep. What prolongs your deep sleep? 30 minutes walk after dinner. That's simple. Why? And I'm going to talk about that. When you walk, the muscles get rid of all the glucose. That's what they are designed for, that you just ate. When you get rid of the glucose, there will be less insulin. There's less insulin, less low glucose after that. All right, your pancreas works less hard, less glucose in the bloodstream an hour, 2 hours later. And if it's less glucose at 11 or 12 when you're supposed to go to sleep, all right, or less glucose deep, so to speak, okay, then you don't release cortisol. And hypoglycemia, actually, believe it or not, eating a dessert at night is what causes you to wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. because of low sugar. Because it's the high sugar from the cookie or cake that you already have on top of the rest of the carbs releases high insulin. Insulin's job is to take the sugar away, the glucose away from the bloodstream, but then it overshoots and it drops it too much. Just by the time you're supposed to be happy going into your deep sleep, 12 midnight, 1 a.m. And then you wake up suddenly with a rush of what's going on. I don't feel good, sweaty, and anxious. And that's your cortisol rush and adrenaline rush from the sugar being too low. Because you ate too many sugars that dinner, that night. That ice cream did the job. Good job. It helps you to go to sleep because it calms down for a few moments. But then it wakes you up because the insulin that was required to put that in dropped your glucose too much for the brain at night. All right? So another thing is very important. If you are having problems with sleep, stop using any device, including TV, for about 1 or 2 hours prior to going to sleep, if you plan to. Big difference. Why? Blue light. When is blue light produced? Sunrise. Your brain thinks, oh, sun is about to come up. Turns off melatonin and turns on cortisol. Stress hormone thinks you just shifted your clock. You just jet lag yourself. Okay? All right. Oh, no, it puts me to sleep, the TV on, but I really don't pay attention. No, it exhausts you more. So you go to sleep for a few minutes or an hour or two, and then you wake up like a zombie in the middle of the night, and you will never go back to sleep again. It's a different story. It sedates you for 5 minutes. All right? It's a different story. So you just shift your clock. You want red light at night, you want blue light in the morning. That's it. That's how our clock works. Blue light comes from sun, red light comes from the lack of sun, which is sunset. Remember how sun is, what color has the sunset? Red. What color is the sunrise? Starts with blue in the morning. That's how our brain knows, nothing else. Okay? That's simple. So stay away from devices if you want to have a good sleep, an hour or 2 hours before, and especially for children. All right, now I'm going to target a different subset population, women. Our women are the worst to sleep. Men sleep much easier and better than men, than women. And we know that. So here, for you ladies, there are many reasons why you can't sleep at night. They're separate from men ones, okay? The two that are common for all of us, they are majorities. One is, as I mentioned, you wake up at 3 a.m. due to the cortisol problem. I changed the order, so you might find that slide a little later, okay? All right. So one is I talk about the two possible causes why you wake up at 3 a.m., although it's not by design. One is stress hormones that are activated like cortisol, if you watch too much TV or media, or if you had some problems that were stressing you out before you fell asleep, because next day you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and you got to think about, make sure I don't forget to wake up, and I put my alarm clock. You already think ahead and you can't fall asleep. All right, don't do that. All right, so here's what happens if you plan next day that's going to be terrible, and that works up your mind, you start ruminating. Write it down in a little journal, 8 or 9 o'clock, what you're going to do tomorrow. Write it down. 3 lines. It's like you do it in your little journal, in your little book. Write it down. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to do this from 8. Whatever is stressing you for tomorrow that you can't go to sleep. Once you write it down and you have a plan, you turn your alarm clock off and you're done thinking about that topic. Okay? You'll be surprised how your brain then listens to you, because you just did not just a thought, but also an action. You wrote, which requires our mental. Big difference. Brain does not want to just think. Brain wants to think and do an action. If you just have the thoughts and no action, that's when you're in circles and you keep being in your mind. Okay? So you're doing an action. You write it down, whatever is stressing you out, way before you're planning to go to sleep. And then you write down what's your plan, how to fix that, and when you're going to do it. And then you're done. If you need to read it 2 or 3 times, fine. But it won't take more than 5 minutes. And then you're done. I'm going to do what I said there. That's it. Your brain got the message. Will stop ruminating. Because you did something with those thoughts. That's just my suggestion. There are other things you can do. But whatever means, you're going to do some action about it and do it. All right. That's an example of cortisol driven. Blood sugar driven. You ate too many sweets, too many carbs the dinner before, or maybe the whole day before. So you're going to switch on low refined carbs, what we call processed food. No juices, no cookies or cakes after dinner, no ice cream after dinner. Guess what? Not only is it toxic to have dessert every night, it's toxic to have it ever, just like alcohol. I need you to understand that. I'm not making this up. The only organ that ever likes desserts, I'm not talking about fruits, I'm talking about what we cook otherwise, okay, or it's being called cookies, crackers, chips, refined carbs. The only organ that likes that is our tongue. Why? Because sugar goes higher than 100 milligrams per deciliter. You already had carbs and the glucose is already high from the other food. And when it goes high, the body hates glucose. It's toxic. That's why it has to be removed immediately from circulation and you release insulin. Okay? So it's toxic. In any version, doesn't mean we can never have it. But the less frequent you have it, the better quality of life you have those days you didn't have it. Okay? All right. Now, you're 10 or 15 years old and you're growing, then body says, oh, never mind. I don't need to store this. I can use it for growing, but not after 25. Okay? All right. So there are slightly different clues of when you wake up at 3 a.m. For example, if you have stress-related response, you feel your heart is pounding, you're alert all the time, you're anxious thoughts, doom feeling, you keep thinking, why, what's happening? All right? Chest tightness, you think, oh my God, my heart is bothering me. Can't sleep again, exhausted, but you're activated. Yeah, the clue is by morning you think, why was I panicking? That made no sense. All right. And you're panicking because you kept trying to find an explanation. Why did I wake up 3 a.m.? Something must be wrong with my body. And the explanation was you're planning to wake up at 5 a.m., which is unusual for you because you had to go to your doctor at 8 o'clock. And you have no idea how many patients I have that they tell me they couldn't sleep the night before because they were alarmed because that they have to see me next day. And my advice is write it down at 7 p.m. the night before. Make a plan what you're planning to do. Stop thinking about it. Okay? All right. But that's an example. And of course, what helps the most, morning sunlight, like I said, calm yourself and accept it. Yeah, okay. I woke up 3. I must have done something wrong yesterday that just keeps me up. But I don't have to take it seriously. It's just normal. I'll accept it. Obvious, alcohol is a big one. I told you. A glass of wine, alcohol, anything too close within 2 or 3 hours in order that alcohol has not been metabolized by your liver, then will help you go to sleep, but then you wake up at 3 a.m. because the acetaldehyde, the side compound that's produced, messes up the brain sleep. Okay? All right? And then you're up, release stress hormones, you don't know where it's coming from. Obvious, don't go to sleep hungry. Nobody said that. That could be a source too. All right? And then stress, working on the stress, doing a little walk after dinner, to metabolize all that excessive glucose in case you overdid it and you had a nice dessert. Okay? All right. Blood sugar driven, we talk about it. It's not that you have too low sugar contrary to what you feel. It's because you have too much sugar 4 hours before when you had your dinner. So it's the opposite. Okay? Now, particularly for women, whether you are still in your fertile years or you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, you can have an estrogen-progesterone imbalance. In other words, too much estrogen and relatively low progesterone, particularly at the end, what would be the end of your cycle. If his progesterone is too low, you're having problem. I'm tired, but my brain won't settle. You just feel like something is missing. All right. Difficulty staying asleep, light asleep, frequent waking, hard to return to sleep, increased anxiety, emotion sensitive, worse PMS. I feel tired but not sleepy, or my body is exhausted but my mind is awake. That's low progesterone. Have the hormone, both progesterone and estrogen, checked at the end, usually of the cycle. If progesterone is below 5, some women may benefit from taking a little natural progesterone, 50 or 100 milligrams or something like that. You can try. And again, reduce the late night stimulation. Now, doesn't matter what's the source of insomnia. What I found useful, although this is more of a popular belief in experts, but I think it's true. At least a lot of my patients tell me helps a lot. Magnesium glycinate, not all the magnesium, but magnesium glycinate, and it's actually the glycine part that helps going to sleep if you take it after you ate dinner. 2 pills before you go to sleep. Also helps you to move your bowel and helps better with the digestion. Okay, all right. So if you were to take a supplement, I'll start with that magnesium glycinate. About 500, at most 500 milligrams before you go to sleep. Okay, all right. Then, if you're a woman that's estrogen predominant, and usually are the ones who may have polycystic ovarian disease, they may have, you might be overweight. Usually, why? Adipose tissue produces a lot of poor quality estrogen that's called estrone. And that estrone messes up with the circadian rhythm, all right? And makes your brain think we have lots more estrogen than we need, and then it blocks, it messes up with your night. You get night sweats, hot flashes, warm face, chest, lip fragmentation, early waking, and of course it's worse around the cycle shifts, brain fog, and migraines. If you have migraines, and you had migraines your whole life when you're having around your cycle, it's related to the fact you're estrogen predominant, and there's a lot, we need to do something to natural, and a lot of the source of the estrogen, I said, either phytoestrogen, people who eat a lot of soy products, or particularly vegetarian or vegan, and or you're overweight and your fat produces too much estrogen, poor quality estrogen. Okay, helps the most if that, or you're just perimenopausal, you're just dropping your estrogen, and then again that may help if you are on estrogen patch. Some certain women, you'll see the doctor usually will try some other agents like SSRIs like Prozac, but sometimes they may offer an estrogen patch which may help to get over until the brain stabilizes postmenopausal. And again, it's estrogen driven when you have hot flushes, you wake up hot. Okay, progesterone driven where you just feel like unsettled and I'm not good and I can't go to sleep. If you feel anxious, ready to go, somebody's doom kind of feeling, your sugar may be low, all right, because you ate too much sugar. And if you feel like you're really hyperactive and wide alert, ready to go, like the day is starting, that's your cortisol. That means you stress yourself by some other things that were preoccupying you the night before or the day that's coming, or obvious something else for real stressing you out, physical. I mean, or you're in the hospital, you have a disease, that's a different story. That will cause it too. Okay. Wake up hot and sweaty, mostly from the estrogen problem. Wake panic with heart racing, mostly cortisol. Can't settle and feel emotionally fragile, mostly low progesterone. Wake shaky and feel better after food. You feel automatically, you'll learn actually that will settle you immediately as soon as you eat something. That's your blood sugar. That means you overdid with the refined carbs and sugars the night before or even the day before. You've been doing it for a long time. Okay? All right. Now, there's some tricks how And here, as I just described what happens, we always think that we have low sugar because I didn't eat enough sugar. That's the weird feeling. Because the first thing you do that. No, you have low sugars, you ate too much sugar because it releases the insulin. Then the insulin then drops the sugar, overshoots after that, 2 or 3 hours later, not in that moment. And obviously this happens during the day too. You just ate breakfast, you come to work, you get your Starbucks coffee, but not the black coffee version that Sorescu has. You're gonna get the deal, okay? And usually 3, 4, 5 different things. I don't know. Whenever I have to buy Starbucks coffee for somebody, I'm total idiot because there's so many variation on the theme other than black, and simple coffee that nevertheless, the more versions they are, the more sugar they put in it. And it could be anywhere between 70 grams all the way up to 180 grams, the Dunkin' Donut. And just to have an idea, that'll be between 6 teaspoons all the way up to 24 teaspoons of sugar. Right. And then what happens is your body's going to release a lot of insulin because you're not moving, particularly if you're working like me at that station and then an hour later, suddenly I'm craving some food. Yeah, your sugar just dropped from all that insulin release. And then although you ate already breakfast, 2 hours later you got to eat again. And what are you going to do? You're going to have a snack. Oh, I kept just in case my little snack. All right. Which is again sugary. And you keep doing it. And then you have lunch. Then after the lunch, you're going to have your soda and your potato chips, even if you just had plenty of carbs. And we keep going in circles. And by the way, you know how many times a day we do this? 5 to 8 times a day, an average person living in this country. Okay. So of course, your brain is a zombie after all this. And you feel it. All right. Or you could choose to, first of all, if you're overweight, do whatever it takes to try to lose 10% body weight. When you do that, you lose those bad estrogens from the fat. And sure, now we have other ways of how to do that. But now actually it's an achievable goal that everybody can lose 10% of the body weight. Okay. And that you'll see that after you lose 10% of your body weight, suddenly everything was related with this estrogen progesterone imbalance at flushes goes away. All right. Eat the dinner earlier. Choose a dinner low in refined carbs, high in protein, vegetables, and particularly fish. Our brain loves fish. Now I have many patients who say, I cannot stand fish. I understand that, but your brain loves the fish. You can do whatever you like and say, well, I'd rather take supplement. That's okay. Just know that none of those supplements achieve what the fish will do it. Okay, and we'll talk because the way they are extracted, it's oxidized, 3/4 of it, it's killed and actually is converted into a bad fat because you have to extract it. The best is from the actual marine fish. All right, so that will help. And the idea is you want to have a steady blood sugar at night. You don't want to be up and down. Okay, and then if you do that, then you won't have that cortisol spike, and then you get eventually your estrogen progesterone balance there. Okay, now there is another major cause of sleep problems is sleep apnea. And I don't get to talk much about that. But just know that sleep apnea, it's not in your handout. I just came up with this. I was like, I got to mention sleep apnea so people know. If you find yourself, you go to sleep and your wife or your husband tells you snore a lot, and sometimes you stop breathing at night, you got sleep apnea. It doesn't matter whether you feel like you sleep well or not. That is the number one cause why your sleep is not good quality and you feel tired in the morning and exhausted despite the fact that, but I slept 8 hours and I don't know anything about that. Well, you listen to your companion. If they say you're snoring, and you have problems with being tired all the time, particularly during the day, then do a sleep study. Okay, because you might have sleep apnea. And think this way, what's apnea? It means stop breathing. It's not the snoring disturbs your partner, but after the snoring, there's a period about 30 seconds where you actually don't breathe at all. And those 30 seconds, they repeat every 5 minutes in an 8 hours interval. It's almost an hour and a half of no lack of oxygen to the brain. that triggers the same stress response. How would you feel somebody keeps strangling you 30 seconds if you weren't during the day? You will immediately start to struggle. You release adrenaline, cortisol, so your stress hormone are up like you're running a marathon, although you're supposed to be turned off and go to sleep. So what they do, they will cause high blood pressure, especially in the morning. These are the morning high blood. Say, oh, my blood pressure is high only in the morning. The rest is fine. Well, that's from the sleep apnea, okay? Because it's just accumulate a lot of adrenaline during the night. The other one, it messes up your cortisol being high all the time. It makes you gain weight and be hungry all the time. Those are the hunger hormones. That's why we have craving. So then you gain more weight. It actually contributes, it's a major contributor to heart failure decompensation and fluid retention. And it also causes you to have irregular heartbeats, one of the major causes of atrial fibrillation in somebody who's particularly older than 50. Okay, so and that's can be a problem. But also those who have heart failure and they have a defibrillator, major source of irregular heartbeats called ventricular tachycardia that triggers your defibrillator to fire and shock. Okay, obvious, nobody here in the audience, but trust me, I've got plenty of patients who their defibrillator fires in the middle of the night because you're having lack of oxygen, and a weak heart does not tolerate lack of oxygen and can put in that bad rhythm, and the defibrillator does what it's supposed to do. All right, so that's important. Sleep apnea. You also can get restless leg syndrome if you feel like your legs shake all the time at night, in the morning. And then you go to the neurologist who's a restless leg doctor. They'll put you on some separate medicine for that. The real reason is you got no oxygen for the brain at night, and you need a sleep study and a proper treatment, which are many of them now. Different CPAPs. There are several possibilities now. We have medicines for it. Okay, but I told you what really makes a difference to sleep, but there's one eating habit that will help you also to improve the sleep, but also your metabolism by 40%. Here's what I told you. There's not just our sleep that has a clock. All our organs have a clock. Look, here are 5. Look, pancreas, liver, our bacteria in the gut, which, by the way, we have as many bacteria as the cells we have in the body. Okay, they work for us at night, by the way. A lot of our vitamins, this B complex and everything, they're made by our bacteria that we have in the gut. But they don't work 24 hours around the clock. They actually work from time to time. Muscles and your adrenaline. Look, we got a peak around 8 a.m. in the morning, and then we have another peak around 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 at most. After that, look what happened with the pancreas. Doesn't want to release insulin even if she has to eat sugar. Okay? Because it goes to sleep. As a matter of fact, in other words, the timing of eating your dinner, and everybody knows, try to eat no later than 8 o'clock, makes a big difference. 40% more effective in not getting diabetes, sleeping better if you eat your dinner before 8 o'clock than if you do it after. You actually cause more diabetes, more weight gain, and everything else just eating. By the way, I'm a horrible culprit with that because I just come late and I have a lot of stuff to do. But yes, I make up with other things. So our organs work in cycle of 12 hours a day, and they do their job. So you cannot really, your brain says you're not supposed to eat at night. At night, you're supposed to digest. It means it. It's prepared for that. Okay. So we have a pancreatic clock. We know the pancreatic clock of this being maximum and these 2 peaks, one in around 8 o'clock in the morning. That's when you're supposed to have your breakfast, and one around 6 to 8, no later than 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Why? That's when it can release the most insulin. Okay. We actually know because we have a receptor for that clock in the pancreas. We can knock it out in mice, and mice develop diabetes. So the timing when we eat is as important or more important than what you eat. Okay. All right. So that's important. So type 2 diabetes is becoming extremely common in anybody older than 65. I'm going to stop using the term senior because soon I'll be one. All right. But one of the reasons is we have gotten away how we're supposed to do it according how we evolved in over 6 million years. All right. And that's why, oh, I don't have never had diabetes in my life. Why are you telling me my hemoglobin A1C? So I'm not telling you. It's very common, but it's also because we create these certain habits that work when we're 20, 30, 40 years old, but don't work anymore when you're 60, 70, 80, because it goes against our natural clock. All right. Melatonin rise, muscle sensitivity, liver doesn't work well at night, as I mentioned. So you avoid eating late, later than 8 o'clock. You eat a big breakfast, you enjoy a moderate lunch, and keep a light dinner that has plenty of protein. That's the idea, okay? And use your own body natural rhythm so you don't have a problem. So that's one important thing. The second thing that I highly recommend, okay, sometimes you can't really eat, you eat later than 8 o'clock. It's fine, all right? But you can fix that by doing a 15 minutes walk after dinner. Try to get into a habit of having a 15 minutes walk after dinner. Huge difference, big difference. Why? I'm gonna explain to you why. Here's why. Muscles, any glucose that has been released after dinner, and when your glucose spikes more than 100 milligrams per deciliter, the muscle is the only organ in the body, and remember, heart is a muscle too. They can take glucose without the insulin. It doesn't need insulin release, but it needs to be active. So you gotta walk. I didn't say you need to run. You just gotta walk. Why? When you walk, you activate the biggest muscles of the leg, and then they open the glucose, transport the glucose channels that don't require activity and muscle function, opens those glucose channels. Muscle starts to take all that glucose that's excessive, that's been given after you ate, and guess what? You get rid of that excessive glucose by walking it, and then your pancreas doesn't have to work hard, release more insulin, which this is where your risk goes from, because the more insulin you release, the more likely you're going to have low sugar, low glucose later on that stresses you out. So walk 15 minutes, and especially if you had the dessert, okay? Or especially if you had the late dinner after that, okay? That makes a big difference, okay? All right, now I'm gonna start moving towards exercise. So this was the sleep part of it. Was this useful? All right, good. And it's all in your handouts. By the way, all these slides, there will be, when I publish this on the website, if you go to more information, there will be a PDF file handout that you can download it. You can also see, because you can zoom in. Sometimes you may be able to read that or not, but anyway, then you can download the digital version of this presentation. Okay, it's also for the other one I've done. All my presentations have that. Okay, so next thing, I'm gonna attack a problem that we all have. We're all sedentary, right? All right, what does it mean, sedentary? Here's what sedentary means. Okay, anything that during the day we're not designed, take back. We evolved to move throughout the day. Once there was sunrise until sunset, we evolved to move at all times. I'm not saying you need to walk for 12 hours a day. All I'm saying is the muscle needs to be activated, and even if it means just standing up. Okay, that's, the worst invention for humans in terms of disease is probably worse than cigarettes. Is the invention of the couch and the chairs. Okay, because once we got that, you're gonna see what you lose. Here's what you lose. This has been very well studied. Okay, this is not about exercise. Exercise is a separate component. You cannot, if you sit on the couch for 10 hours a day and you exercise for an hour, you could be the greatest exerciser in the world. You're gonna be not just a couch potato, you'll be an active couch potato, but you're still gonna get disease. It makes no difference. Exercise is complementary, does not supplement the need to stand up every 15 minutes. Our body has the need to stand up every 15 minutes for at least, and you need a minimum 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, it's a must. Here's what happens when we sit down after 15, 30 minutes. All right, immediately we lose the nitric oxide from the endothelium. So that means our arteries start shrinking because they cannot relax to accommodate blood. When we move, we produce nitric oxide because the simple movement releases nitric oxide. You have more blood going to your brain, more energy, and you have more blood going to your muscles, but also the blood pressure gets lower. Okay, just standing up and moving. All right. The second part happens when you sit on the couch, all right, or on chair. The muscle, when it's active, activates an enzyme in the bloodstream that's called lipoprotein lipase. What that does, it dissolves the circulating fat from your bloodstream. In other words, that's how we burn the fat, by standing up. So if for 12 hours you did not get out of the couch, or 6 hours, or when we were in the hospital, you guys stay even for 3 days, everything you ate is not used, it's stored. All right, triglycerides goes up, then you go to the doctor and you say, well, Sorescu, I'm taking my cholesterol pill because my LDL is high, but my triglycerides are very high. Everybody says that. How do I reduce those triglycerides, which are nothing but your circulating bloodstream fat? Okay, this is what happens. You're too sedentary. You stand in bed for more than an hour at a time, and this is what happens. So you don't activate the enzyme, which muscles activated by just standing up. That's not exercise. All it means every 15 minutes, stand up and walk for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. Then I told you, muscle being active activates the glucose transport inside the muscle, which is independent of the insulin. So the more your muscles work, the less your pancreas has to work to release insulin. What's toxic to us is not the glucose per se, is the need for insulin. Insulin is the problem. That's how we get insulin resistance. We have to release too much. Either we get too low sugar, or we develop insulin resistance. We'll talk about. Another thing that happens when you stand up, people don't realize we have more than one pump in the body. It's not just the heart pump, but actually your calf muscles are a pump. They pump the veins back into the heart, so you don't get dizzy, lightheaded when you stand up. They also that calf muscle standing up prevents the blood from getting pulled in the vein and getting clots in the number one cause of clots in the veins. Or in the airplane, you just stand, you can't move for more than an hour. When you lie in bed, you had a hip fracture, you stay for 2. We all know that. Treatment, every 15 minutes, you stand up for 3 to 5 minutes. Whether you also add some walk to that, no problem. But just standing up makes a difference. Okay? And so frequency, not intensity. And yes, exercise and stretching, and particularly work at the computer desk, get every 15 minutes up for a few minutes. Okay? All right. But there's more beneficial effect from just standing up a few minutes every 15 minutes. It releases it's called brain-derived natriuretic peptide. That is a fertilizer for our brain function. Muscle tells the brain, I'm using my muscle. You need to get smart. Make sure I don't fall. Keep my balance. That's important for our memory. It's the best protector against Alzheimer's. When you stand up, you stay smart. Okay? But also, everybody thinks we all, after 60, we all tend to get osteoporosis, right? So you go to the doctor, what do we give you? We give you Fosamax and all that stuff that presumably prevent osteoporosis. And you take some calcium and you take some vitamin D. They're all useless. Because bone don't listen to signals unless it's a mechanical signal. If you keep lying in bed 12 hours a day, or on the couch more than an hour at a time, your muscle sends signals to the bone. Hey, I gave you calcium phosphate, I gave you those medicines, the estrogens. Now please store calcium in the bone. It's called mechanical transduction. If you don't use it, you lose it. It's the muscle that tells the bone to retain all that. Otherwise, everything just flushes down the toilet. Doesn't matter how many drugs and how many supplements you take. As a matter of fact, all that calcium, instead of going to the bone, if you sit on the couch, It goes into your heart arteries, and then you get increased coronary calcification, and then you get coronary disease. It goes into your aortic valve, you get aortic stenosis. It goes in the wrong places, in the soft tissues, not in the bone. So stand up. And when you say, well, I cannot exercise because I'm hurting, well, you can do things that you don't have to stand up. You can, put the little weights on that. You can do rowing. You can do stationary bike. I don't care how you activate your calf muscles, but every 15, 20 minutes, do for 2 or 3 minutes something that uses those muscles. Gravitation is usually the best, okay? So that makes a difference. But guess what? There's more to it. If after age 55, 60, or in any age, you spend a lot of time on the couch. I'm talking about anything over half an hour a day, unless you're asleep, it's a disaster for the muscles. Muscles get signal to age. It turns off at one point. They can't replicate. They can't accumulate. It's actually a signal for aging the more you sit on the couch. Often we say, well, it's just my age. I feel tired and I'm hurting everywhere. No, you decondition yourself. And yes, you did tell your muscles to start aging because you're not using them. And it's not just the muscle. It's the bone, it's the heart, the brain, everything. You just trigger and you told your body to start aging because you are not planning to use any of those. And we have evidence for that. Now, how do you separate aging-related normal, decay versus deconditioning? Every 15 minutes you stand up and you start walking for 3-5 minutes, then you go back doing whatever you're doing. All right? Keep doing that for a month, and you'll see, instead of coming to me and keep telling me I'm tired all the time. All right? I want you to be objective, though. This is one thing that I tried, and I urge my patients to do it. Get one of those things that measure your steps. Why are those important? Because we overinflate in our mind how much we do. I do not know one person who is accurate about their physical activity. I do not know. We always think we do more than what we do. And the truth is, no, we don't. If you wear a Fitbit that costs $30 or an Apple Watch that costs $400, I don't care. Be honest about it. I use this guy. Two is my coach and my motivator, whether I did right or not today. And we have this 10,000 steps a day rule, which is not an absolute rule. I don't care. But once you start measuring, when you find most of my patients, I'm talking about the active ones. Oh, I can walk a mile a day, no problem. I'm very active. I cook, I clean. I'm still very active. When we actually look at the steps, it's 2,000 to 3,000 steps a day, in average. I'm not exaggerating. And when you do that, that's 2,000 steps is like a mile a day. That means total activities during the day when they think they're independent. Yeah. Now, I will compare that how our body has evolved. Do you know what was the average amount of how many miles a day we were doing until about 100 years ago? 6 to 9 miles a day, including the ones who were 90 years old. Why? Because they used to, sure, there were few who would survive that age, but the ones who survive, they will not be sick. They will not have joint disease. They will live, and then they will drop dead when time is up. I don't know about you, but that's how I like to go. Okay, function until the last day, and then I want to go. I'm okay with that. I just don't know when. All right? But the point is, not only that, but why? So if I see that I'm doing only 2,000 or 3,000, and I dare to tell my patient, can you please, for the next few weeks, go up another 1,000 steps a day? Just every 15 minutes, just get out of the couch and walk for 3-5 minutes. And walk with a purpose. Do something. Find yourself. I don't know, I'm going to clean my dishes now. I personally like to clean my dishes with my bare hands. It's intentional. This is how I grew up. But anyway, it's intentional. My wife likes to put them in the disher. That's not good. I like to cut my own grass because this front will take me 45 minutes, back will take me 45 minutes. Those are 2 days worth of good exercise that I'm done with the exercise for those days. Excellent. Now, I'm not saying you should do it, but I'm just saying while I still can, and I'm not hurting, I use that as an excuse to do purpose-related exercise. That's how our brain and body works. Find a reason to do something for those 5 minutes that you interrupt every 15 minutes. I never watch a movie to the end. People will see me. I start watching, it doesn't matter how good it is. I put it on pause. After 15, 20 minutes, I find something, even I just get a cup of water. And then I interrupt her, and then I go back. All right? This is a trick. But why? Make it meaningful. I got to do those steps. It's not that you got to do 10,000 steps, but you'll be surprised. Well, but I tried. My joints are hurting. I can't do it. I hear this all the time. Not true. Your joints are hurting because your muscles are weak. Your muscles are weak because they are deconditioned, and your bones are weak, and you just haven't done it. They are starting to age. But once you expose them every day, little by little, more and more, you'll see 3-4 weeks from now on, suddenly you stop hurting and you can do more and more, even if you're doing 3,000 steps more. You just got to reverse that process. It's not aging, it's deconditioning, which you can reverse, but you got to be persistent. And then you have to have a boss that you keep looking if I've done it or not. Okay? That's why I like those, to measure those steps. Now, you don't have to be fanatic about 10,000 steps a day, but we'll tell you that you've been, I think anything over 6,000, 7,000 steps, you did good. All right? And if you then you can do more if you want. But that tells you you're actually active, not what you thought you were active. All right? I have plenty of patients do 20,000 steps, and I'm shocked that I don't even do. All right, so I told you why this is important, because muscle is not only essential to maintain a proper blood pressure, to maintain a proper metabolism of glucose. The most anti-diabetic medicine we have is walking and using your muscles. All right? The most anti-aging organ we have is the muscle. The most regenerative aging and slowing down aging is the muscle. Every other organ listens to the muscle, the liver, the brain. They are waiting to see why. Because whenever we change, we had to hunt, we had to be able to. You see, animals don't perspirate. They have to use their tongue. So they will always outrun us at speed. But we will walk and run long stretches because we can perspire, so we don't overheat. So we used to be runners when we were hunters. When we were farmers, we worked 12 hours a day at the farm, not stopping. Okay, that's how we have evolved. Those muscles need to be everything. Then the muscles got developed. Then we got to maintain. Then the muscle tells every other organ what to do. If the muscle is not used, it tells all the other organs, we don't need you. And then things start to get disconnected. That's simple. I didn't say to run. I said walk, stand up. That's it. With purpose. But it has metabolic implications, aging implications, and preventions of Alzheimer's in your brain. Walk, and whatever you do, try to do it with the purpose. What do I do when I interrupt myself from reading a lot of books and having to prepare for this kind of talks? Trust me, it will take me usually, sometimes I have to read 4, 6, 8 hours a day study for this. But I stop it and I go out, I pick up gardening, and then you get, every once in a while you get this kind of production. This is not often and every day, trust me, this is just some examples. Or not, you can pick up some flowers. If you're not, well, I don't have the green thumb. It doesn't matter, just anything. You'll be surprised. Well, no, there is no green thumb. You just start, you read how much sun they need, you kill a couple, then you go back and read, and then you try again, and then suddenly everything grows. All right? It's not a big deal. There is no green thumb. You learn. Or I like to, put a bird feeder and watch the birds move around. You'll be surprised. I like to also do photography, catch them when they fly. Get yourself busy outdoors with little things that can happen within your environment that you create. And you'll be surprised what you can get out of it. Okay, so I said stand up and walk 3 to 5 minutes every 15 minutes. Get yourself off the couch. Activates your metabolism, prevents you from actually getting obesity because it burns your triglycerides, lowers your blood pressure, prevents you from aging, and tells every other organ that you still need them full time so they can work for the muscle. Okay. Second, what kind of walking you do is important. If you're you can be a fast walker. Turns out that if you can walk fast, and I'm going to define what walking fast means. Walking speed, it's the higher the walking speed, it's the most important predictor how long you live. Okay, more important than your blood pressure, more important than your cholesterol, more important than if you smoke or not, more important than if you're overweight or not. Walking, maintaining the ability to walk. Okay, and we're gonna go there how we fix that if you hurt with your joints. It's actually not that hard. All right, and you can look at the speed. If you have a speed that you can do more than 1.4 meters per second. By the way, that's not a lot. That's like 2.5 miles an hour. It's not that hard. Okay. And if you go below 2 miles an hour, you can't do it. Then you start to have increased risk of dying. And if you're less than 0.8, it's even more. Okay. Now this could be temporary. As long as you can improve it, it doesn't matter. So that's an important thing to know. A simple walk can tell you a lot about your health. All right. And look what happens if you say, I'm going to be a walking person from now on when I have time. Whether you walk for 30 minutes, you start with 10 minutes a day, then you go to 20, then you go to 30. Don't go start to 30 or try 30. No. You introduce a habit every day and you keep going up on the duration. The key is frequency, just like with standing up every 15 minutes. Frequency, not intensity. And then eventually you start going up. Make it sure it's a daily thing. Whatever you can, then no matter what, you can do it. Shorten it as much as you can. All right. Oh, I cannot walk more than 10 minutes. I'm going to hurt. Fine. Do 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes. Every day, you stop when you hurt. Then you go back. Then you try again. You do another 5 minutes. But you keep it every day. Then you go to 10. You'll see after what happens in a week. If you start doing consistent, you have less leg swelling. Because why? Your calf muscle is the pump that pumps the vein, the back, venous return back to the body. Your bowel movement improves. You have less morning stiffness. Your joints start to hurt less. In 2 to 3 weeks, you have better cardia. You feel less shorter breath when you do it, which was just deconditioning. Lower blood pressure, increased endurance. In 4 weeks, better balance, more stability, confident walking. And in months, your bones get stronger. The single most important therapy for osteoporosis is walking. Not drugs, no calcium supplements, no vitamin D. You just need 30 minutes of being in a t-shirt and walking in the sun for 30 minutes. I wouldn't recommend more than that without being protected, because then you start to have increased risk of skin cancer. That's not what I said. But anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes a day being with your body exposed to sun, it's okay. As a matter of fact, your body wants it. Okay? All right. And then you have sharper memory. Big difference. But a daily habit that you introduce and you keep going with it. All right. And I told memory. All right. By the way, our father of medicine is Hippocrates, right? We took an oath, so to speak. He says the single most important thing, 2,500 years ago, the single most important thing that we can help somebody, any patient of any disease, is to teach them to walk. Okay? The healthiest thing you can do. Of course, we don't think that. And again, I don't trust you walk enough if I don't see the steps. And you need to see the steps. I have patients where I ask them to show me the steps. And they text me with the blood pressure and pulse and the steps. But I don't do it for me. I don't really, doesn't matter to me. I do it because they know they got to show it to me. So they make themselves accountable for they got to do those steps. All right. And that's all it matters. All right. And when you, it's a paradoxical thing. We have less energy because we exercise or walk less. The more we sit, the less energy we have. The more we walk or we exercise, the more energy we get. Because that's how the system was designed. The muscles create the energy, including the brain. So if you don't walk, then your energy comes from glucose production from the stress hormones. And that's when we're exhausted. If we walk, energy comes from thyroid gland controlling it, which burns fat, not glucose. And then we have more energy because burning fat produces 10 times more energy than burning glucose. And when you burn glucose, it's also dirty. It's with fumes, and it's bad. Our mitochondria don't like that. So sitting on the couch, you burn very little fat, and not only that, you store it. Okay. Now, anybody's got any joint problems, any back problems, I would like for you to try this. I promise you I'm going to fix 80% of your problems by doing this simple. It's what exercise you pick that matters. I like rowing. Okay? Why? It's gentle on any joints. No. It's so you can do it. It provides both aerobic and strength kind of exercise. Okay? Right? It's like you're lifting weights and running in the same time. So you don't need, if you don't have time, you cannot introduce, it's too complicated. I got to do this for my upper body. I got to do this for my lower body. I got to do this. By the way, every other routine usually isolates and trains only certain muscles. Swimming is good for your arms, but that's much it. It's very little for legs. Obvious, walking and running is good for the legs, but not good for the upper body. Okay? But none of that is important. The reason why our joints hurt from wear and tear is because we have preserved only the front muscles strong because we walk in front, while the back muscles are weak. I'm talking about back muscles all the way from the neck all the way to your heel. Those get weak because we don't walk backwards. So that creates unopposed, you put much more force and weight on your front, and you get imbalance pressure in front on your joints at any level. If you hurt your back, it's because your front muscles are stronger of the back and the back muscles are weaker. The same with the joints, with knees and hips. So we need to do exercise that will work on 95% of all the back muscles, and that's rowing. When you pull this, and rowing activates not just the back muscle, the front, the top, the bottom, all of them, 90%. All you need is, and you say, well, I don't know what that is. I don't know if I can do it. Try it. Start with 1 minute a day. Go up to 5 minutes a day. You'll see that, but the key is every day or at least 3 times a week. And be patient. Don't suddenly jump to 30 minutes because I need to get there. No. Just do a few minutes a day, but keep it steady. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, you go add another 5 minutes. After 2 weeks, you add another 5 minutes. Once you get to 15 minutes, that is a piece of cake, you will see after a month or so, it's a completely different. Everything that used to hurt you stops hurting. Okay? I would say it's 80% improvement. All right? Now, and that's why, so it's both aerobic and, as I mentioned, it builds your muscle strength. It's works on everything, most of your muscles, and it's fast. 15 minutes. That's it. That's all you need to do. If you don't do any other exercise that day because it's raining outside, if you just do 15 minutes of rowing, that's it. You don't need more, other than the stand-up that's telling you and walking every 15 minutes. All right? Big difference. And you can find, by the way, a rowing machine under $200 on Amazon. Very cheap. And they're now, you can put them vertical so it doesn't occupy my space. I recommend everybody, if they have a space, to buy it and have it with you there, unless you have access to a gym that you can go every day, which is good because then you walk to the gym and then you do your exercise. The problem is when you say I'm going to the gym, that just never happens. But if it's there, you make it easy. In other words, you have to make it so easy that you cannot have an excuse, I'm not going to do this 15 minutes every day, all right, or 3-5 times a week. Okay, so try that. All right. By the way, you'll stop waking in the morning that your back hurts. I can sleep now on the floor, and I just do it 2 or 3 times a week. All right. You don't need a soft bed anymore after that. All right, because the muscles support the back. So if you hurt with your back, it's because you have weak back muscles. All right. All right. And it's, as I mentioned, exercise. Now we're going into exercise. So my point is, before you start doing fast walking, before you plan doing sometimes fast walk alternate with slow, or some of you maybe more ambitious and want to do some running like I do, I can tell you, I got there about 6 years ago. I started running because I got to lose weight. I was 30 pounds more, and I got myself into 6 miles running from the beginning. And of course, it fixed my blood pressure. Didn't lose weight at all. But then after a month, horrible muscle cramps and my joints start to hurt. I said, what did I do? And then I couldn't do anything at one point, but then I saw that I could do rowing. So involuntarily, I started doing rowing. And I noticed that the more rowing I do, actually the more I can go back to running, and eventually it will go away. And it turns out my problem is my muscles were weak before I started doing. So build first the muscles, most of them by doing some rowing. Then you can get back to be more ambitious with walking faster, running, or anything else you plan to do. All right? All right? Obvious, if you are diabetic, you take insulin, you gotta be careful because it will drop your sugar, so you might need to adjust your insulin or anything else. But here's what else. If you actually go to an exercise routine like I have, which I do about an hour a day, at least 5 days a week, then you release all the hormones, all the neurotransmitters that are lost during the depression or when you have ADHD. It fixes all that immediately. Dopamine, motivation, reward, but the natural way, not the digital way, not the ultra-processed food, the burger way, the healthy way, all right? Serotonin regulates go up, norepinephrine, which gives us the energy, is up, and endorphins, opioids. But not only that, but also all our hormones start to get back. Say, I need testosterone. I see, and by the way, when you exercise, that half an hour, everybody thinks we're doing it so I burn calories. That is the most idiotic idea I've ever heard in my whole entire life. Okay? If you run on a treadmill at 6 miles an hour for a whole hour, you burn 300 calories, you just burn half an apple. No, you do not do it to burn calories. That's not why you're doing it. Okay? Unless you're planning to run for 8 hours that day. Then you'll do it. And yeah, Olympic trainers do that. Swimmers, yeah, they burn a lot of calories, but they don't do half an hour, or what we do. They do some serious 8-10 hours a day training. A marathon runner will burn a lot of those calories in those 40 miles they run, but that's a different story. Or 26 miles, sorry. Yeah. But no, that's not what we're doing. We're doing because muscle is a central organ for whole body healing, regeneration, and longevity. Using your muscle tells every other organ to stay young, healthy, and regenerate. It's for the metabolic part. It's for long-term consequences of what it does. And over there, I just went through all those slides because it shows that it's not about calorie burning. It's about normalizing your glucose and your diabetes. It's about regenerating your body and your hormones, the natural ones. It's about keeping your brain sharp. And it's about really any other disease you have in the body, using your muscle helps. Okay? So it's very important. Okay? And I think maybe we can stop here for a little. Is that okay? All right, that's good.